Hi everyone, my name is Renee Long and I am one of the webinar coordinators here at the American College of Healthcare Sciences. And joining me today behind the scenes for all our technical needs is Dominic Aiello, the other webinar coordinator here at ACHS. And today we'll be hosting a very special webinar focused on careers in yoga and complementary alternative medicine. And we have an expert panel of ACHS master students and professional yogis joining us today, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to our panelists. So first up, we will have JJ Gormley-Etchells, and she's an experienced registered yoga teacher with 500 hours who has been practicing yoga since 1979. We have Jessica Fruth. She's also an experienced registered yoga teacher with 200 hours and a client systems operator with the U.S. Air Force Reserves, and she also holds an MS in exercise science. And then our last panelist is Jeri O'Dowd, and she is also an experienced registered yoga teacher and a registered nurse and a gentle yoga teacher. And so welcome, ladies. It's so wonderful to have you guys with us here today. And you'll also notice that you have a questions box in your control panel. If you have a question you would like me to write down for the Q&A, feel free to type it into the questions box. And if you have a comment for other attendees, you can write those as well in the questions box. You may also have noticed that your line has been muted, and we are recording today's webinar, and this helps ensure we can clearly hear our presenters. And now it is my pleasure to introduce you to our first panelist, JJ Gormley-Etchells, who is going to talk about her experiences and then answer a few questions about yoga and CAM. So welcome, JJ. We should now be able to see your screen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so I've been asked to be a panelist here, and I'm very happy, and thank you, ACHS, Renee, and Dominic, for getting this all together and organizing this. The first couple of questions here are why yoga? How long have I been involved with yoga? Why did I choose yoga as this profession? And the benefits of yoga as a CAM modality. I began yoga in 1979 before it became popular in the US. At the time, my roommate was into yoga and a vegetarian diet, and for Christmas of '78, actually, she got us both classes at the just at the local recreation center. And at the time, I was kind of upset with her because I saw or knew that the present was more for her than for me. And because that was the last thing I would have wanted for Christmas. But now, of course, we see that all things happen for a reason. And in the end, it is actually probably what was the best thing for me ever. And of course, it's become my career path. So I was definitely took a liking to it. Though at first, I must say I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with it. I was horrible at it, couldn't touch my toes. Everybody in the class seemed much better at it than me, and they were all much older than me. So at some point, I looked around and thought, you know, these women here who were like my mother's age all looked so much healthier and happier certainly than my mother, but even than most people that I knew in my life at the time. And I, you know, wondered what it was, and saw that the yoga must be doing something. Of course, my ego kept me in yoga as I set goals like, oh, I want to touch my toes, and you know, goals like that are the more sort of superficial goals. It didn't actually end up becoming my profession for quite a number of years later. My undergrad is in mathematics, and I became a teacher, a mathematics teacher, and my colleagues knew that I did yoga and wanted me to teach them, and that began my teaching of yoga. I taught in the teacher's lounge after school. And then I ended up taking a year of sabbatical off of teaching high school mathematics, and thought that what I really wanted to do when I started college was to be an art major, and so I wanted to kind of go back to that. And then in art, at these art classes I was taking, I also taught yoga on the side. So the yoga started to be this sort of side business that grew and grew and grew. And eventually just teaching in my basement to a few students a week grew to a studio outside of my home with over 30 teachers on staff and 1,500 students, 3 locations, and it actually became too much, and it wasn't fun anymore. And then that's when I decided what I really liked doing was the one-on-ones, helping people therapeutically, and teaching teachers who are interested in the deeper aspects of yoga, which is to say the more CAM aspects of yoga. So that kind of started leading me in the direction of seeing yoga as a CAM modality, and blending it in with my other interests, which was mostly herbs. So I had a substantial herbal garden and was into using herbs for healing quite a lot, and kind of mixing that in already. And so the last question here on the screen is the benefits of yoga as a CAM modality. I think many people don't think of yoga as a CAM modality, but more as exercise, which is generally how it starts for most of us. And I think where it starts to get into being a CAM modality is at the yoga therapist level. And and there's like a spectrum, so there is a little bit of CAM modality stuff happening in yoga at the yoga teaching level, but really not until it gets more into the yoga therapy level do I see it as a CAM modality. And there's a lot of research happening now using yoga as a CAM modality. The International Association of Yoga Therapists presents a symposium on yoga research every year. And also, of course, that organization has been instrumental in putting yoga therapy on the map and getting it into the medical world, and getting it recognized as a CAM modality. They are just now at the forefront of getting yoga therapy teacher training programs accredited, of which my school where I train yoga teachers and yoga therapists is in the process of going through that accreditation right now, which is quite an ordeal on its own. So anyway, there's tons of studies out there now showing how yoga can be used as complementary and, if not alternative, medicine. Next screen. So I chose the American College of Healthcare Sciences for their reputation and for the ease of online learning, and because they're one of the few who had a master's program in complementary and alternative medicine that was able to take online. And I've been enjoying every minute of it. I've been in the master's program now since 2011, just taking it a class at a time, and I recently had to take a couple of semesters off, so I'm going at the snail's pace, but eventually I'll get through. The value that a holistic health education brings to yoga is, I believe, instrumental in this whole, what I was just talking about a moment ago with the IAYT, the International Association of Yoga Therapists, and the Symposium on Yoga Research, and things like that. And so the more we can blend any aspects of a holistic picture of someone's health, and yoga is, part and parcel doing that. The way that they look at the body and healing the body is holistic, which is exactly what we are here trying to do at in these any of these CAM modes. So so getting more education around that is only going to enhance and add value um, to my education and to holistic health in general and yoga as well. I apply my education to my career in the private sessions mostly. And so when I see a student one-on-one, looking at them in this, holistic way as a multidimensional being, certainly the tools of yoga that I can use come into play, but also, recommending dietary, herbal supplements, etc., can come into play. Ayurvedic training I've had as well comes into play. So to me, anything that you can bring from any aspects brings a more holistic way of looking at medicine, a holistic way of looking at the individual to help heal them. So so it's just a all-encompassing education that can be applied holistically in yoga and holistically to an individual. My hurdles and challenges. I think my personal hurdles is my own my own stuff gets in the way. So part of the practice of yoga is what we call svadhyaya. And svadhyaya means to do a practice of self-reflection and sort of questioning whether you're on the right path, whether what you did that day was the right thing, and also, going into the future. And so keeping that as a practice helps me overcome any hurdles and challenges and things. But I would say that me, myself, and I is my greatest hurdle for me personally. But in terms of yoga teachers on the whole, I think that one hurdle is that this difference between yoga teachers versus yoga therapists is one thing that is just unknown out there, that there is a major difference between what a yoga therapist is and a yoga teacher. And that yoga teachers are allowed in the classroom after just 200 hours of instruction, compared with, say, a yoga therapist who's going through a 1,000-hour program. And so the small amount of instruction of 200 hours does not prepare the general yoga instructor for the many different situations that can come up, the least of which are keeping the body safe and the students safe. And so for the most part, teacher training programs at the 200-hour level need to instill in the teachers or the graduates from that program that they need to put the onus on the student to stay within their own current capacity and protect their own body. But many yoga teachers and teacher training programs still have that more Western mindset and push the body and ask the students to push their bodies. And so we see people getting hurt in yoga and headlines about yoga and people getting hurt in yoga. And so this gives yoga a bad rap. Compared with yoga therapists who are seeing clients one-on-one and working with each individual, and they're trained to stay within the current capacity of the student, and mostly it's for healing some issue or another. And I think also another hurdle or challenge in the profession is that many yoga teachers are graduating from these 200-hour programs and stopping their studies, and that goes against what the tradition of yoga is, which is it's meant to be this lifelong path of study. And there's just really, historically, there's no such thing as stopping your study after you put a certificate on the wall. And so it hurts me that there's so many teachers out there making grave mistake and kind of hurting the profession on the whole. And so I would like to see, I don't know how that could, be overcome, that particular hurdle, but that's a challenge for our industry on the whole, I think. Future goals. Well, my future goal is combining my studies and hoping to link more in with the medical profession, which I am somewhat. I have many referrals from doctors and psychotherapists and things to use yoga therapy with folks. But I would really like to see that more and more in the profession on the whole, and not just individual yoga teachers here and there.
All right, well now we'll go ahead and jump into some of these questions that we've prepared for you. So our first question is, you started your yoga practice in 1979 before yoga really became popular in the United States. So what drew you, maybe you could talk a little bit more about what drew you to your yoga practice at that time, so early.
Yeah, my roommate Kathy at the time, I
Mm-hmm.
kicked her when she gave me the present, but it actually ended up being a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing to me is that she never stuck with it, and we've in many ways started at opposite ends of the spectrum, and now we traded places. She's in she's a registered nurse,
Mm-hmm.
and yoga and holistic medicine is kind of the furthest thing from her right now. It's kind of sad, but we of course have remained friends throughout. And she would do it, practice holistic medicine on herself, but she has a hard time recommending it to others.
Mm-hmm.
And and I, on the other hand, was into, I was raised with instant food and packaged food and McDonald's, and when my roommate Kathy said, "Oh, well, we can be roommates if you can do a vegetarian diet," and I said, "Well, can I have Coke and brownies?" And she said, "Yeah, that's vegetarian, sure." And I said, "Okay, I'll do it."
Oh,
And
that,
but I really learned quite a lot, and that was the beginnings of my education. Was
wow. That's
learning.
so interesting how you both ended up flip-flopping. It's funny how yoga can grab some people like that and not let go, and then others it can kind of, other people just lose interest a little bit. That's really quite interesting. Um, so on that note, what major changes have you seen over the years in the integration of yoga and CAM? I know you talked about yoga therapists, but do you believe that that's growing, that as a modality is becoming
Yeah.
more popular?
Yeah, for sure. Yoga, when I was first into yoga, I was actually embarrassed to tell my family I was taking yoga classes, and I was going to take an art class or
Hmm.
things. And when you mention yoga, they would say like, "Oh, yogurt or what?" Like people didn't even get it. And now, it's hard to watch an evening of TV without seeing yoga
Right,
commercials and jokes about yoga, and everybody's heard of yoga now. and
right,
and things like the chakras, no one used to have had heard of the chakras, and nowadays it's more they pronounce it incorrectly, and but they so
yeah,
so yoga itself has grown and come into mainstream, and of course I guess we have to thank Hollywood and different stars for helping that as well. And in terms of integrating it into as a CAM modality, like I said before, I think as the profession of yoga therapy develops more, because we're just on the cutting edge of that,
hmm,
and differentiating yoga therapy from yoga teaching is the struggle right now. But as
right,
that starts to become more and more known, then I think yoga therapists will be more sought out, and it will become more and more known as a CAM modality. And more research studies. The research studies of yoga used to just be, oh, and they did a yoga intervention, but they didn't say what yoga they did, what style of yoga, what postures, what breaths, anything. And all of these different um, tools of yoga have different outcomes, and it's very important to those of us who know the difference between, the in-breath and the out-breath. What
Mm,
exactly are you doing? And now the studies are getting to be more specific. And they're not just saying, oh, we did a yoga intervention. They're saying we did this as the yoga intervention. And so that's a huge change. And so the research studies now that bring yoga in are getting more and more specific about what the yoga is and more intelligent about the protocol.
mm.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it is really fascinating how it has grown in that way and has become, I think, less stigmatized as kind of a, I think, like you said before, like people would be like, yoga? What? What are you talking about? And now I think it's becoming very, very mainstream in our culture, which is a good thing, in my opinion, anyway. So I believe you've worked with clients suffering from PTSD or other systemic ailments. Can you talk about any specific techniques you've used with them or any success that you've seen?
Yes, so I designed and ran a study. It ran in 5 locations in Virginia, Wyoming, and Florida, and it was designed for abused or traumatized women. And the the basic protocol is with the breath and lengthening the breath and to link the breath with movement. And so I don't know how many folks on the call might know the yoga pose or posture called cat-cow, but it's
Hmm.
basically you're on all fours, hands and knees, and the cat position is when you hunch the back up toward the ceiling, and the cow position is when the back goes in toward a back bend position or a hammock looking kind of spine or a back bend. And the breath syncs with that as follows. On the hunchback position, the belly pulls in, and that's your exhale. And in the back bend position or the cow position, or the hammock back position, the chest is open, more open, and that is your inhale. And so, in a simple posture like that, and of course we put multiple different postures in the protocol, but on a simple posture like that, we would want them to deepen the breath and move toward a lengthened exhale. And the exhale, of course, the breath is linked with heart rate variability, and the longer the exhale is, it helps to kick in the parasympathetic nervous system to help an individual calm down, and it's the de-stress side of the breath, the exhale. But we also want these women to get stronger, and so we want the sympathetic nervous system as well to get strengthened. And those two systems, the PNS and the SNS, parasympathetic and the sympathetic, need to both be strengthened. They're both weak in someone who has PTSD. And so we want them both stronger, but we go by it in a very particular way. It's been found that you must lengthen the exhale first, then the inhale. And then if you're adding holds, you add the hold after the exhale first, and then finally the hold after the inhale. And the studies show when you systematically play with the breath in that way, it maintains a calmer nervous system, even though you're deepening or lengthening the inhale as well. And so that's what we did. And so we would have them in a simple posture like cat-cow. You start the breath and get the breath to even. So say they're doing a 3-second inhale, 3-second exhale. And we didn't have them count seconds or anything, but in our minds, the teacher is counting or giving some cue, and usually it's something that they say, like they would just say, "Now I'm inhaling, now I'm exhaling," when they're inhaling and when they're exhaling. And then you go to lengthen the exhale and you say, okay, now when you're doing cat pose, we want you to say, now I'm exhaling longer. Now I'm inhaling, now I'm exhaling longer. And you do that back and forth for several times and possibly in a different posture at this point, so you don't keep doing cat-cow the whole time. And then in a third posture, you go to lengthen the inhale. And so your breath was at now I'm inhaling, now I'm exhaling, which is an even breath. Then you say now I'm inhaling, now I'm exhaling longer. Now you say now I'm inhaling longer, now I'm exhaling longer. So that's the third step. And then you could even go longer if you wanted by adding the word more in there, or you could move to the holds, the hold after the exhale, then the hold after the inhale. And so in a very systematic way, we get the students to deepen their breath with an emphasis on the exhale, especially at the end of class. So after you've done the routine, at the end of the class, you go back and lengthen the exhale even more to make sure the PNS is kicked in more and the de-stress and the calming down piece of it. So overall, we're working to strengthen the both sides of the nervous system. If all that made sense. Sorry, I like to have a blackboard and write this out so you can really see the lengthening, but maybe it made sense.
That's wonderful. I love cat-cow, and I agree with you that I think it is one of those poses that really releases a lot of stress and tension and emotion. You can kind of just feel it like ease out of your spine with that. And it's interesting that there is actually, it does really matter about how you're using your breath. So that's really, really fascinating. So I'll be thinking of that next time I'm doing cat-cow. That's great.
Clinic in Chennai where I go to study, they have done tons of study with the breath and how it's linked with the not only the nervous system but the emotions and particular ailments generally follow a habitual breath. So if someone has this particular breath that they're breathing over in number of years that they've been living, they will generally fall toward these particular ailments, kind of a thing. Right. And so really all of us need to be looking at our breath, looking what our pattern has been, and start to change it to strengthen our system. And the breath is so many systems, not just the nervous system, but mentally and emotionally and everything. And we all know that. We just say, when someone's hyper, we say, calm down, take a deep breath, or drop your breath into your belly. And
Yeah, it's fascinating. It is. It's quite amazing how much the breath can change even just our physiology. It's incredible. So we do have a question from the audience. They would like to know, so somebody with a serious medical condition, like a back condition, would yoga be beneficial or hurtful? I'm sure it probably would depend on the type of back condition, but maybe you can offer any more insight into that.
Yeah, I mean, in general, if the person is able to get in their car and drive to me or to a yoga therapist, then I can help them. But if they're, laid up and they're flat on their back and can't get out of bed, then I could still probably help them. But what I would do is just to help them calm down and go to their breath, and then do some movements with their arms. And when we do arm movements, it helps to stretch the musculature into the back body, and it can help start to ease things. But those kind of cases, you'd have to be on an individual, case-by-case basis. But for the most part, if somebody can get in their car and drive to me, I can help them.
That's awesome. Very, very cool. Okay, so but before we move on to our next panelist, do either of our other panelists, Jeri or Jessica, do either of you have any thoughts before we move on to our presentation, either on the questions or any of the topics we've discussed thus far?
No, not really. I agree with JJ about the back injury and being able to go to them and maybe doing even some face yoga, breathing is huge. And when they can move around a little bit more. there's restorative yoga. So
Right.
definitely yoga can still be helpful.
Yeah, yeah. I would agree. Even as a non-expert, I would I would agree. Okay, well, this is great, Jessica. So we can go ahead and move on to your presentation. Thank you so much, JJ, for talking about your career and your life and your experience in yoga. It was extremely fascinating. So thank you so much. And so now I will take this time to go ahead and transition into Jessica's presentation.